All right, welcome back to Ducks and Pucks. This is your host, Mike Walters, along with my co-host, Eddie Jones, and we also have one of our other writers, Phil, on the show. Say hi to everybody, Phil.
Hey,
So it'll be us three on this week. We'll be talking about the last two games. We got some interesting stuff to cover this week. The no goal call that everybody in the world was getting upset over in Calgary. A little bit of line toss action going on after Game 4 that I think some of you might have missed or you might have seen, and we're going to cover that. And we'll also look around the league to the other couple series that are still going on and get you up to date on those as well. Let's go back to Game 3, Eddie. And the Ducks came into this one ahead 2-0 in the series. We knew Calgary was going to come out strong, and they did. They came out with that first goal in the first 2 minutes. But the Ducks took control after that. Had the 3-2 lead late in the third until obviously the no goal call, and then the rally by the Flames in the third and the overtime. What did you think about the Ducks in this game?
Um, I think they got away from the game that had won them 6 games in a row. I think they got out hit by Calgary. They only had 21 hits, and Bujo was mentioning after the game that 21 shots is a low for the playoffs, and 21 hits is a low, and they dominated in the faceoffs, but they kind of got away from their game, and I think that's really it. They controlled the play for in the first period they played really well. A little bit of a mistake by Lindholm in the second period on the power play that leads to Joe Corborn's shorthanded goal, and then obviously the last second goal by Johnny Gaudreau is a little bit of a mistake by Lindholm too. I think like I said before, just to get away from their game, and it cost them late.
And Phil, what did you think about Game 3?
yeah, it doesn't really help when Lindholm kind of blows a tire, as they would say. Because when he completely spun out, and then that's what led to the goal. So, and then making poor penalties and leading to those goals by Goodrow, and it doesn't help when you get those bad penalties. I mean, you can't expect to win every game in the playoffs, but at the same time, stupid mistakes aren't really helping you out either.
Yeah, I mean there were a couple of mistakes there. Obviously, like you said, the shorthanded goal to Colburn there in the second period got Calgary back in the game, tied it up. Beleskey, obviously came back and answered right after that. I think the biggest turning point in this game really came on the no goal call, Eddie. There's a lot of talk about it, and we're going to go into depth about a lot of things that the league will need to do. But in terms of this game, I think that really made a big deal because once that goal was taken away, which most Duck fans know when we have a goal call either for or against us, 4 out of 5 times we usually don't get a call. So when we got that call, I mean, I was sitting on just shocked that it went our way, and obviously so was a lot of other people. But I think that play fired up the Calgary crowd, fired up their team, and if you noticed from then on, Calgary really took it to the Ducks, Eddie. And I mean, we can talk about the refs and some of that too, but I just think it fired up Calgary.
Yeah, you got to hand it to them for sure on that play because sometimes you'll see a team just deflate after a bad call like that, and obviously we're happy it went our way, but you got to say when you look at that angle, and I know it's a hard angle to judge on the 45-degree angle, but it looks to be in, and Toronto they have the goalpost cams that they put in this for the playoffs, and the overhead was obviously not able to be used because of the crossbar being in the way. So, we'll talk a little bit more about this later, obviously. But I think it's hard to blame anybody. Toronto has a lot more views than we get to see on TV, and if they believe the call is inconclusive, which I do think it crossed the line, but I do also agree with the call. I think it has to be 100% conclusive. They reviewed it for a long time, and it's a really controversial play and a hard one to judge.
What do you think, Phil? Did you think it was over the line, or do you think they got the right call, or what's your take?
I honestly think that it was over the line. Um, but like you guys said, looking at those angles, it's hard to tell one way or the other. And since there was no conclusive evidence on whether it was a goal or not, I mean, obviously it's going to stand the way that they called it. So, I mean, like, you really, like, maybe you could bring in the coach's challenge into this kind of stuff and try to look into it. But honestly, other than that, I can't really see how you would change it unless you put a, like you say, a camera on the crossbar.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and that's something that all three of us talked about before we got on the air here doing this. Is those two cameras in the pole, Eddie? They both look at each other, and they said that it doesn't show the ice all the way. So to me, I mean, if you can put it in the pole, then you should put one on the crossbar, looking down at the line right there, Eddie.
Yeah, we always seem to have this issue on important plays where replay has to come in to see if it crossed the line. Glove gets in the way, or pad is the same color as the puck, or the crossbar's in the way, like on this case, or something seems to be in the way. And it's not like you can just put cameras everywhere and tell. And like you said, there's a little bit of things they could change. Obviously, that overhead and having the crossbar right over the red line is a little bit, confusing to why it would be right there. And you've seen it on more plays than just this one, where the overhead really isn't able to be used because the puck is crossing the line right underneath the crossbar and you can't see it. And like Phil said, putting a camera underneath the crossbar could be the answer. But I'm sure they've had to have thought of that, and there has to be a reason why that isn't a thing. I'm sure, there's no way somebody hasn't thought of that in the NHL offices. And it's a hard thing to do. You see in soccer where they have the goal line technology, and it's a little bit easier, bigger net, bigger stadium. They're able to track the ball and its movements and see if it's over the line. And I don't know if anything like that is plausible for the NHL, but I'm sure it's something they've already looked at.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. The goal line technology. That would be something if. I mean, it's 2015. We should be able to figure out something that way to, improve it when it gets to a controversial play like this. Any other suggestions, Phil, as far as fixing these kind of situations? I mean, we talked about goalies, coach's challenge for next year, but any other suggestions you may have?
No, like you guys say, I mean, it's probably already been thought about, but like you say, it's 2015, so I mean, there should be at least something that we could come up with where these no goals or goals should be reviewable. Because I mean, like if you look at, like I say, like if you look at football, like every scoring play is reviewed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and every play is reviewed now, but the problem is we don't always have the proper angle. So I think, definitely trying to either fix the overhead, like Eddie said, or putting one in the crossbar, like you said. I also saw a thing. I think it was Sportsnet that put out a kind of an animation of what the puck would look like if they zoomed in, and I know a lot of people saw that and then said, "Oh, okay, it should have been no goal because the puck was on the line." I just want to remind everybody, if you go back and look at that animation they did, they're really approximating where the puck was over the line, so you can't go by that and say, "Oh, okay, the call was right on the ice." You really got to go back to, and Eddie and I talked about this. We review all the calls all the goals, and look at them on NHL.com. But when it comes to these situations, basically, Eddie, it falls back to the original call on the ice. When it's inconclusive, they go back to that. So if they would have called a goal, it would have been a goal. And if they called no goal, so it was no goal.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to too is they couldn't tell if it was over or not. And there's that 45-degree angle, and I'm sure like Sportsnet, when I was watching it here, they said it, I don't know how many times, where the 45-degree angle isn't the best angle because it kind of warps where the way the puck is viewed crossing the line. So I think, like you said, it has to be conclusive. They spent a lot of time on this to make sure it's an important time in the game, because if that goal goes in, it's a tie game. If it doesn't, Anaheim still got the lead. So I think in the end they made the right call based on it being a no goal on the ice. But if it was a call to goal, then yeah, you definitely would have seen it go the other way.
And then the second part of this, which I thought was interesting, a lot of fans noticed this too, and we can go over this, is, the calls after this. Anderson got ran into, and the announcers said that it was going to be a power play, and I even tweeted out power play, and then after the commercial break, they come back and say 4-on-4. You had some fans throwing beer or some kind of liquid on the ice. They didn't call delay a game penalty, which I know they don't usually call that, but they had to stop the game, get the crew out there, and get that off the ice. The overtime, they called that penalty on Stoner. And then it even looked like Kessler touched the puck, and that's why you saw Getzlaf going off with the refs at the end. The unfortunate part of this that I didn't like, Phil, is that they took that call against the Flames, but then it just seemed like they went against the Ducks on most of the calls the rest of the way.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I mean, this whole season has been against the Ducks. I mean, like these calls that should not have been calls are being calls, and the ones that should are not. So, like if you look over the season, we had plenty of calls that have been like that, and I think it should have been a penalty. I mean, if you're running into a goalie, like it's automatically should be a penalty.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Eddie, the issue there was, basically they called the initial penalty, but they ended up, evening it up, and thought the Ducks were going to have a power play there, and then that call against Stoner, we've seen people push in front of the net in overtime, and refs rarely call those kind of calls, Eddie.
Yeah, and they were looking to, I think, even it up. The fans were getting on them, and not to say that that goal call, the no goal against Sam Bennett was the ref's fault. It's really the guys in Toronto, and I think that the crowd was jumping on the refs, and it seemed to make a difference. And, I don't want to blame the refs for losing the game. You can't really blame them for Vatanen's delay of game penalty at the end where he bats it over the glass. That's his fault, and that's what ultimately gives them the 5-on-3 and leads to the goal. But the Stoner penalty that would led to the goal in overtime, and well, it was the delayed penalty, sorry, but and then even the 4-on-4 were staging, I guess, the interference on Freddie Anderson, and Simon Dupre gets a roughing penalty, but a borderline roughing penalty. He kind of just pushes the guy off, and he falls to the ice, and then that's a roughing penalty. It was a little bit of a cheap one. I think the refs were just trying to get the guys off the ice. I don't think they thought it would lead to a goal, but ultimately that's what happens.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, there's times that you and I have kind of gotten upset at certain calls and stuff like that, but I just want to make clear, I don't blame the refs for, the Ducks losing that game 3. I really don't. I thought it was unfortunate because it seemed like there was the no goal call, and then it seemed like because of just, the impact from the Calgary fans, they started calling things more their way. It just was unfortunate, I mean, even with the Ducks losing the way that they did, I wasn't even really that upset. I mean, I didn't like some of the calls down the stretch, but like you said, Vatanen shooting the puck over the glass was really the killer there because they had that 5-on-3 with the goalie pulled for the final minute. So that made it tough. But you know what? The good thing about the Ducks is, we go to game 4 and come out and we get a win in that game. And, the Ducks are kind of on their heels in the beginning of this game. They scored first, but Calgary came out strong. But the Ducks were able to, get 3 unanswered goals and win this game, Eddie.
Yeah, and a couple early giveaways, I think, is really what was hurting us. Obviously, in that Fairland goal giveaway at the blue line, and he's got a free slap shot on Anderson. You could arguably say he should have had that one, but it's a tough one. And Goudreau makes a really good play on the first goal, and Monahan just gets an easy tip past Freddie. So it was a rough first period, a good start, like you said, with Silfverberg getting it on the power play, but right after that, and them answering 40 seconds later is something that we're used to doing to the Flames and to the Jets in the playoffs so far. But like you said, another good second period. So at least that hasn't followed us into the playoffs. And Beleskey scoring for the 4th game in a row, and finally sealing that empty netter. I don't have to hear about the Flames being the comeback kids or the cardiac kids up here anymore. Somehow, yeah, somehow the Flames get labeled as that, with the Ducks having more comebacks and having more 1-goal games, but they still call the Flames the comeback kids up here. But at least Patty Maroon iced that. We didn't have to hear that again.
Yeah, exactly. And Phil, your favorite player, Beleskey's been on fire. 4 goals in 4 games. What's impressed you about him and the Ducks in this game?
Well, as you put it on the Twitter, like he just tied Solani with the most consecutive goals throughout the playoffs. So it's kind of makes me happy because my boy is Beleskey, and seeing him do well really thinks that he'll solidify a spot next season.
Yeah, and I think that's a big issue too that Eddie and I talked about too is what they're going to do in the off season. Beleskey, for those of you that didn't know, he tied Solani's record for at least a goal scored in the first 4 games of a playoff series. Solani did it back 2010, 2011 against the Nashville Predators, in which he actually scored 6 goals in that series, but he had one in at least each of the first 4 games. So if Beleskey gets one tonight, then I mean that would be a new club record. But I think it'll be interesting in the off season, Eddie, to see what happens with Beleskey, because you and I talked about, if they weren't going to keep him long term, they could have traded him and got, several picks or players. And now with the situation, coming up this summer, I really hope that they make some kind of a deal and keep him, because he's just been outstanding all the way around this season, Eddie.
Yeah, he just seems to be in the right place at the right time, and you need guys to step up in the series and the playoffs. Obviously, we saw, outside the big three and Getzlaf and Perry and Kessler, you need somebody to step up, and Silfverberg was that guy in the first series against Winnipeg, and Beleskey's really been with his key goals in this series, and goals in each of the first 4 games of the series. It's been scoring first, and I believe in the first 3, and then getting this game winner is those are all key goals, and it's going to be interesting, like you said, coming in the off season. I think we can all agree Fleischman is probably gone. He was a rental. I don't think he's going to be re-signed unless it's for something cheap and just as a depth role. But we'll probably see him move on, and then that opens the door a little bit for Beleskey. But you got to think, is Richie gonna be able to come out through camp and earn a spot, and they're all gonna put that in consideration when his contract comes in, and obviously the price that they're gonna sign him at, because you got a couple RFAs coming up soon, and Silfverberg and Lindholm and Vaughn, and guys you're gonna have to want to sign long term, and you got to take that all into consideration when you're signing a guy like Beleskey.
Yeah, and I mean, also you got to look at the development of the second line. Since going back to the 3rd game in Winnipeg, Kessler, Silverberg, and Beleskey have been together on that second line, and they've just been dominant. Phil, I mean, they've played really well. Beleskey with Silverberg and Kessler has really turned out to be something good this playoffs.
Yeah, I really like that second line, because actually I feel like that's where we're getting the majority of the scoring from. Because both all of Beleskey and Silverberg and Kessler are all doing really well. So I hate to see them be broken apart.
Yeah, I think that's the line. We've been trying to come up with different names for this line, and a couple of good ones recently was the second first line, Eddie, which I think is an appropriate title.
Yeah, this is why we got Kessler, and obviously Silfverberg and Beleskey have completed that line, but we needed guys to help out Getzlaf and Perry, and I believe both of them weren't on the score sheet for the first time in a long time last game in Game 4, and Perry only not scoring for the second time in the playoffs so far, so you need guys to step up, and that line stepped up, and Beleskey and Silfverberg grabbing a lot of points that game. Kessler grabbing an assist, and like you said, it's the second first line. A lot of our scoring chances are coming from that line, and we've got 2 lines rolling, and the third line and fourth line chipping in, on the odd few goals or assists. So I think everything's rolling right now, and especially with these first 2 lines.
Yeah, I mean the way it's going now, even the special teams play. We were 2 out of 4 on the power play in that last game, and Calgary didn't score at all on the power play. So I think that was key. After the Ducks couldn't score on the power play there for the last couple games, so that was a big help. I think they didn't do as well in the faceoffs this game. They actually had given up 2 more faceoff draws to Calgary, but they still got it done. I think the turnovers was the key. Especially Johnny Gaudreau, he's a great offensive player, but I saw him cough up the puck twice on one series, and then on the Cogliano goal there, Phil. So, I mean, I think that was the key for the Ducks in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Johnny Gaudreau is, he's very, very good, and we have to give him props there. But all hockey players make mistakes. But luckily for us, it turned out the way that we wanted it to.
Yeah, I mean, I think Eddie, that turnover that he made in the second period in this game, like we talked about the no goal in the third game, I think that play in this game was the turning point for the Ducks.
Yeah, you got to remember too, though. He's a young guy. He's a relatively small guy in the league, and he's playing big minutes, and he's a big piece of this Calgary team along with Monahan, and he's got that. They've been so good this season because they've got a veteran like Hoodler on that line, and he made a lot of mistakes, and Hartley rimmed him for that in game three, and he comes out or in game two he comes out in game three and gets the game winner and gets a really nice assist on Monahan's goal and in game four, and he's stepped up, but he's gonna make mistakes. He's a young guy. It's his first year in the league, and obviously it benefited us, but it's hard to win when you got young guys like that. But they're still really skillful, and you got to be on your toes.
Well, the good thing about tonight is we go back home. At the end of Game Four, there, I don't know if everybody knew, but some of the Calgary fans they gave the Ducks the number one salute. I don't know if you saw that on the Twitter, but I retweeted out one of those photos. So they weren't too happy with us winning, especially Maroon for some reason, with that empty net goal at the end of the game. He actually got hit in the back with a lime, it looks like, by one of the fans. So you all know about, the Bud Light lime that I talk about, and we always joke about it. But, it's just kind of interesting. I'd rather have the lime in the beer, Eddie, than in my back.
Yeah, and you showed me the pictures before the podcast where the lime hit in the back and gets off and Perry getting a little pissed off, and I didn't even see that. They didn't even show that on here. I guess it's a little hard to see, and they kind of cut away on the Sportsnet feed up here. But yeah, before you mentioned that, I didn't even know about it. I didn't even see it on Twitter. Yeah, it is, but it's kind of classless. I'm not gonna put the whole Calgary fans in that boat. There was a couple players flipping off. And Maroon when he scored. But to be fair, when the Ducks won and they showed a clip of Monahan, I flipped them off on my TV too. So I don't really think I think everybody was a little bit happy when they won that game, and obviously they're going to be pissed off. But when you throw things on the ice, that's a little bit too far. So I think they got to watch for that in game. Well, if it gets to game six, I don't think anybody at Honda Center is going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not labeling all the Calgary fans. I just thought I actually thought it was funny. That's why I put out the photo with the Mimi in it and whatnot. I just thought it was a crack up. But yeah, going into tonight, Game Five, what do you think we need to do, Phil, to close out this series?
We need to win for sure. No, but, I think if we keep doing what we did last game, I think we honestly will win. And it's going to be good for winning at home. And we're going to face a tough Chicago team, but at the same time, it'll be good to see, our boys take it home at home.
Yeah, I agree. I think that always makes it a lot better when you win a series and you finish it off at home. And I think the key in this is going to go back to the special teams again. It seems like when the Ducks win the special teams, which has been a majority of the games, they win. And I think the key too, Eddie, is really slowing down the speed of Calgary. The last two games they've come out flying in the first period, and I think if the Ducks get in, work the forecheck, and tire out the Flames defense, then they'll put themselves in a really good position early in this game.
Yeah, I think also we got to score first. Along with Tampa Bay, we're the only teams left in the playoffs, I believe, that are 100% after scoring first. So I think that's a big key for us is grabbing that first goal. Obviously, the only game we lost is Calgary scored first. So, get on them early, get on the pressure early, and then keep it up. Have a strong second period, and we've scored 4 goals per game in the playoffs so far, which is pretty amazing. And Freddie comes out and has a strong game, and it's hard to bet against the record the Ducks have against the Flames in Honda Center. So I think we should be seeing a 4-1 series win after tonight.
The only other, I guess, part that comes up with this is, a lot of people have been hitting us up about the lineups as far as Wisniewski coming in and playing or Sekach. What's your take on that, Phil? You think the Ducks just roll with the same lineup? Obviously Fletchman came in the last game for Edom, but do you think they go with something similar, or do you think they'll change it up for this game?
I honestly think that they'll go with the lineups from last game because we played so well. But I really would like to see Wisniewski draw in because he's a very good offensive D man, and I really like him as personally too. So I would like to see him come in. But I mean, at the same time, I don't really know who you would draw out other than maybe Dupre or Vossinen.
Yeah, I think that it's hard to say who to take out, Eddie. No, Vatanen didn't have as good of a game last game, but some of the other Ducks defensive players didn't either. I don't know who you would take out if you brought him in, Eddie.
Yeah, it's tough. Dupre has had a pretty good playoff so far. He's got 5 assists, and he throws the body around well. And Boschman's, you're not going to take him out. You're definitely not going to take Lindholm. And even though Vatanen struggled the last few games, he still has 7 points. So I don't think you're going to take him out either. And normally we would say you take out Stoner, but I think having all these guys offensively, it's nice. It gives guys like Vatanen and Lindholm and Fowler confidence to go forward if they're playing out there with Stoner, that he's going to be back there and he's going to be defensively responsible. So I think it's hard to put Wisniewski in. I think realistically you could take out Dupre and play Wisniewski on the right side so you have another right-handed shot if you see a problem. But right now there is no problem, and I think you just got to stick with what's working right now. You've only lost one game so far, and if we win the game tonight and you get into the series against Chicago and you see we're struggling, getting the puck out of our zone, or maybe putting another right-handed shot is what we'll need. But as of right now, I think you just got to keep it the way it is.
Yeah, and I think we all agree on that. I mean, I think that's the way it's going to be. I mean, at least going into this game, not to look too far ahead, but if we do take out the Flames out in this game, we go to Chicago. Then I'll be interested to see what'll happen. Whether or not Sekach or Wisniewski come in that series, Phil.
Yeah, absolutely. And not. I think Chicago actually on their top line has a lot of speed. So I think that if you draw Sikach in, then it might help us out in the speedway. And same with Wisniewski too. He has a lot of speed, and like Eddie said, he has a right hand shot. So if we need him, we have him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the good thing is with the Ducks, Eddie, and we talked about this too, is the depth of this team. Being able to basically play almost two series and have three or four of your guys sit out. I mean, it's a huge advantage because if any of these guys, we don't hope anybody gets injured, but if God forbid something happens to somebody, we've got plenty of players that can come in and step in, Eddie.
Yeah, and not just regular players. You got capable players. You got a guy in Wisniewski who was the best defenseman in Columbus when he came over, and Yuri Sekach is a great young player, and Fleischman being able to step in and take that role from Edom and play well, and you got guys who can come in and fill that spot equally, if not do a better job at times, and and the way this line I specifically put together is done is been pretty impressive. I know we're a little scared when the lineups first got announced. We're like, well, Sekach isn't in, and Wisniewski isn't in, and Fleischman's sitting, and then two separate, two really different series, a really physical battle against Winnipeg, and Calgary a lot faster, younger, speedier team, and being able to go up 3-1 against them, and like Phil said, going against Chicago, who's a fast team as well. And they've split up. Taves is on the first line, and I believe Kane's on the second line. But they've got so many weapons as well, Sharp and Hossa. I think that's going to be the real big challenge. But I don't think you change it up at least for game one. You got game one in Anaheim. You see how that goes. But we're getting ahead of ourselves right now. We still got the game tonight. Still got to close out the series. But looking ahead, I think you just got to keep it the same at least for game one.
Yeah, and we talk about the other series going on in the league too. Obviously the Blackhawks are done; they've already beat the Wild in 4 games. But you go to the East, and it looked like Tampa Bay was going to run away and beat Montreal out, and it looked like Washington was going to beat New York. And here we are, both of them going to game sixes. What do you think, Phil? Do you think Tampa Bay takes out Montreal still? Do you think Washington's going to take out New York?
Honestly, I think that. I thought that Tampa Bay would take the series in 4. They look really good, and Montreal's coming back. And when you look at the other series, you see that the Rangers are starting to come back. So, I mean, honestly, I'd hope the Rangers would win, but at the same time, I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, and Eddie, what do you think? You think Tampa Bay and Washington close it out, or do you think New York and Montreal can rally in these series?
Yeah, you don't know. It's anybody's series. Technically these two teams are upsets with quotation marks around them. The number two seeds bumping out the number ones, but the two big games here for the Habs and for the Rangers away from home. Tampa's got the game on Tuesday in Tampa and Washington obviously playing in Washington tonight. Um, I think if any team is more likely to close it out, I think I'd have to say it's Washington. I like how they've played so far, and I think at home I think they can close it out tonight with the play of Holtby. But the Habs and the Lightning is a different story. I think in Game 4 they finally scored some goals. Obviously they pumped six past Bishop, and you don't see Montreal score a lot of goals. Their power play is just terrible. I believe it's like 6% in the playoffs, and then last night you got a completely different game where Price and the defense stood up, and you scrape out a 2-1 win. But we've seen them try and do that. You can only do that for so long, and that's why they went down 3-0 in the first place. Only four teams have come back from down 3-0. I think if Tampa doesn't take it tonight, it'll be really interesting. But I still think Tampa will take the series.
Yeah, I think Tampa will take it. Some guy named Smith Pelly had a big goal in that last game.
Yeah.
Not that people forgot about him, but he had a big goal in that game to get Montreal that win and get him back to 3-2. But I think you're right. I think Tampa is still going to win this series. Unless they lose tonight, then yeah, of course, then we go to Game 7, and as we have experienced ourselves, anything can happen in Game 7s. And Washington, it looks like Washington's going to take out New York, which that was the biggest surprise to me. Washington I knew was a good team. Obviously, you got Ovechkin with his 50-plus goals. You can't count him out. But those are both going to be interesting ones to see. And, obviously, been watching those games before our Duck game, and we'll see what happens. But we'll come back probably in the middle of the week or whenever this series is over, and we'll preview. Hopefully, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but hopefully we win, and we'll preview the next Western Conference final series. Just want to give a big thank you to everybody that went to the watch party. Got a lot of good photos from that. Glad everybody was able to go. It didn't rain, so it worked out good. And even Phil went and got the Ducks logo cut in the back of your hair on the back of your head there, Phil.
Yeah, it was awesome. Vinny the barber sure knows how to do his work. He got a huge line, and basically it took me into the second period waiting for a haircut. But it was honestly pretty cool. And then, my dad's like, "Oh, it's not gonna rain. Watch." And unfortunately, I didn't wear my jersey, but because I thought it was gonna rain, but it rained right after the game was over, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it worked out for everybody, and I think that was a good event. I like how the Ducks do the watch parties at Honda Center. I was really happy when they built that terrace level and added the two big screens. So it's always good to see everybody out there, and we'll always keep telling everybody when when they'll have those again. I believe again, don't want to get ahead of myself, but it'll be in the next round it'll be Game 4. At home, at Honda Center when they're away, that they'll show the next one. But obviously, we'll post all that info. And just the last couple of things here. Just want to say Happy Mother's Day to everybody out there. I hope you all have a good Mother's Day leading up to the game. And also happy birthday to the captain, Ryan Getzlaf. Hopefully he puts in a few goals tonight and carries the team into the next round. We also have our shirt that we're offering for a 15%. I don't know why I came up with 15%, but a 15% discount. So if you go on our website on dnphockey.com, just enter in the word GETS on checkout, and you'll get that discount on the shirt. And that's going to wrap it up. Just remember to subscribe to us on iTunes. You can get us on there. You can get us on YouTube. We've also put ourselves on a couple other sites like Spreaker and TuneIn and a few others out there. So you can look for us around there. And we'll be back hopefully before next weekend. Thanks for listening.
The Anaheim Ducks are the Stanley Cup champions.